You ever see a filmmaker make a decision so insane, so financially reckless, so cosmically disrespectful to the gods of accountant logic that you start questioning whether they're directing a movie or trying to speedrun bankruptcy like it's Mario Kart? Because that's exactly what Emerald Fennell pulled with Wuthering Heights. And I swear to God, the moment I found out about what happened behind the scenes, I felt like I'd walked in on someone gambling their house away because the cards were vibing. And the craziest part? She won. In spirit, anyway. In money? Oh, not even close. But in audacity? Olympic gold. Because the story you think you know, the headlines about Robbie and Elordi and trailers with synth pop moaning in the background, that's the cute PG-13 version. The real version starts long before the discourse, and it begins with a bidding war so stupidly lopsided that even I, a man who once bought a sandwich that cost more than my entire week's groceries, had to pause and say, hold on, she turned down how much? And that's the moment the rabbit hole opened. See, everyone thinks filmmaking is about artistic integrity or vision, and yeah, maybe if you're delusional or French, but in Hollywood, it's budget, baby. And Wuthering Heights triggered a studio bidding fight that genuinely looks like someone typed the wrong number into a spreadsheet and nobody corrected it out of fear. Netflix, because of course it's Netflix, came in swinging with $150 million offer for exclusive distribution. $150 million just to slap their logo on it and bury it under Glass Onion replays. And I'm sitting there thinking, if someone offered me $150 million right now, I would sell them my life story, my future children, and my browser history, in that order. But here's where the story stops being normal and starts becoming aggressively Fennell-coded. She said no. Actually, not even just her, Margot Robbie said no too. The whole creative team basically threw Netflix's check back at them like they were insulting someone's honor in Game of Thrones. Because Netflix wanted to do what Netflix does. Take a piece of extremely expensive art, shove it onto the homepage for 3.5 days, and then ghost it harder than your ex did after Thanksgiving. Emerald and Margot weren't having it. And this is where I started admiring the insanity. I'm watching these two women stand there like, we want a theatrical release. And Netflix is blinking like, we gave you $150 million. We can buy all the theaters. We can buy the Moors. We can buy Emily Bronte's Ghost and make her write a sequel. But Fennell wasn't budging. No, she wanted the cinema, the big screen, projection, a dark room full of strangers questioning their life choices, the full sacred ritual. And Netflix, shocked, confused, horrified, backed away like someone who had just been handed a baby and didn't know what to do with its head. They stroll into the room wearing sunglasses indoors, holding an $80 million check like it's supposed to look impressive. And somehow, that's the offer Emerald accepted. $80 million, barely over half. She basically picked the guy who brought a cheese board to a potluck where everyone else brought steak. Why? Because Warner Bros. Said the magic words. We'll put it in theaters. No algorithm, no data spreadsheet, no suggested for you, just old school cinema and cold popcorn. And this is the part that kills me, the romanticism of it. The pure, delusional, follow your heart even if your accountant has a cardiac arrest optimism. I love it. I absolutely love it. Because say what you want about Emerald Fennell, there's about 900 think pieces doing that already. But the woman commits. She commits so hard, she turned down enough money to buy several small countries just so her movie wouldn't debut next to Too Hot to Handle Vatican City. And I get it. I really do. I'm not above sentiment either. I've held on to things I loved long past the point of reason, like relationships and my hairline. But this is religious devotion. And here's the funniest part. Turning down the $150 million wasn't even the biggest gamble. The biggest gamble was what she thought she could do after. Because remember, this wasn't some MCU blockbuster with guaranteed ticket sales. This is Wuthering Heights, a story about two people so toxic they make most Twitter couples look emotionally stable. Not exactly Fast and Furious numbers. And she still said, put it in theaters. They'll come. This is where the Hollywood suits start sweating. Because when you take an $80 million art film and throw it into theaters, That's not a distribution plan, that's a trust fall. And the ground is rock, and the rock is filed with reviewers who haven't enjoyed anything since 1998. But Emerald pushed anyway. I respect the stubbornness. I'd marry that level of stubbornness. But let me tell you what happens when you put an $80 million gothic fever dream into theaters instead of Netflix. People show up, kinda, or they don't, or they wait for streaming, or they show up but they thought it was Pride and Prejudice and spend the whole movie confused and slightly scared, and the box office predictions start looking like a funeral budget. But here's the twist, and it's the reason this entire story fascinates me like a raccoon staring at a shiny object. She didn't do this because she thought it would be a hit. She did it because she wanted the movie to exist the way she saw it in her head. And you can't dream in IMAX on a streaming homepage surrounded by cooking shows and murder documentaries. She wanted storms, moors, darkness, audience silence, none of which Netflix can guarantee because Netflix is the platform where people pause 10 times to check their laundry. This whole situation becomes even more chaotic when you remember that Margot Robbie, producer, star, walking cultural juggernaut, backed the decision completely. Imagine having the power to say yes to $150 million, but choosing the offer that looks like it fell out of someone's coat pocket. That's how much they cared about theatrical. That's how much they cared about the experience. That's how much they cared about making something that wasn't meant to be consumed between bathroom breaks. And I know there are people out there who will be like, well, maybe it was about control. No, because Warner Bros. Didn't give them money. They gave them respect, which is somehow more valuable and also worth absolutely nothing. So what happens next? The moment Warner Bros. Signs on, the whole project becomes a ticking bomb. Because if it works, they look like visionaries. If it fails, they look like the idiots who beat Netflix's $150 million offer with store credit. And you know what the most brutal part is? Even if the movie becomes a masterpiece, even if critics weep and historians praise it, box office doesn't care. Theaters don't care. Money doesn't care. If your movie doesn't make cash, you become an inspiring failure, a beautiful disaster, a cult classic in real time. But you know who does care? Directors, artists, the people who don't get into this industry because they love balance sheets. Emerald Fennell is one of those people, and her mindset is the most intoxicating, reckless energy I've seen in years. It's the exact kind of I want what I want and I want it now stubbornness that built Hollywood and also destroyed half the people in it. And this story, this $150 million rejection, is the clearest proof we've ever gotten of what she truly is. A romantic trapped inside a capitalist machine. A poet holding a sword. A filmmaker who looks at a giant streaming platform offering generational wealth and says, nah, I'd rather have a projector. And the funniest part? I know exactly why she did it. Because we've all done it. Not at that scale, obviously. I'm not out here turning down yacht money. But we've all had moments where we picked passion over logic, desire over security, the heart over the wallet. Most of us just do it with dating or gaming PCs. She did it with $150 million. And that's what makes this story insane. That's what makes it cinematic, because you can't teach that. You can't train that. You can't calculate that. That comes from the same place that made Bronte write a book so psychologically feral that people still argue about it 200 years later. It's obsession. Artistic, reckless, unstoppable obsession. And watching Emerald Fennell continue that tradition, not by retelling the story, but by living the madness behind it, is the reason this film is more than a film. It's a gamble, a tragedy, a confession, a love letter to cinema disguised as a financial mistake. And honestly, I love her for it. You need that chaos. Movies need that chaos. Studios need people who don't treat filmmaking like an Excel sheet. Because in a world where everything is algorithm smooth, A/B tested, engineered for maximum dopamine retention, Emerald Fennell said, I want a movie that breathes, that screams, that storms, and you're going to watch it on a screen or not at all. And that is how Wuthering Heights became the most bizarre financial love story of the year. A film that could have been a Netflix mega-budget showcase, but instead chose to walk barefoot into the thunderstorm of theatrical distribution because the director and star wanted the film to have a pulse, no matter what it cost. And if that isn't the most Heathcliff-coded decision you've ever heard in your life, I don't know what is.